and welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of a book, Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news or social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is being said by my guest, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today, we have Linda Runstein. Sorry, can't say it. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Sophie.
How are you?
Wonderful. I just had my coffee.
Happy days. So what we're going to talk about today is really love, relationships, dating in general. So before we do that, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
What can I tell you about myself? For 20 years, I have done research on human love.
Okay.
Yes. And so I was in the science part of it for a while, learning things about how we fall in love, not the feelings, but basically the
chemicals,
the instinctual and the biological.
Right.
And after 20 years of research on all of that, I decided to start an academy about how today's people that are single and struggling can connect with all the information, all the research I've done. And it's a proven formula.
Mm-hmm.
We have to think of love just as much on the inside of what's going on than just psychologically on the outside. So this is what I do for a living.
Fair enough. So tell me a bit more about, the biological and all the rest of it, because it's quite interesting.
It is. Basically, it starts with the ancient part of our brain.
Mm-hmm.
Where survival and procreation is. Also, all our innate feelings in this unconscious area of the brain, the first brain, the old brain. These behaviors that are natural work with our neurochemicals in the brain. And they connect together to formulate our feelings in the emotive center of our brain, in other areas of our brain where the cognitive and the limbic part of the brain, all these connect, and our hormones. And then you have other chemicals like oxytocin, which for women, if they don't understand what it is and what it does to them, their relationships will suffer.
Okay.
There's so much inside neurobiologically instinctual that work so that we can connect.
And I often say, when people are talking about love or just in general, we're still, we might have evolved or whatever, but we're still completely animal. And I think that's quite interesting as well. It's not so much when we have a feeling of love towards someone, but also when we straight away don't like somebody at all. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's a reaction.
That's your pheromones at work.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your pheromones. There's still arguments about the pheromones, but from all the research I've done, I think it has something to do more. Women have more strength in their pheromones than men do.
Okay.
So if a guy walks up to a woman, right away, she don't like him. She can't understand why she doesn't, but there's just something nagging her. That's her pheromones.
Okay.
So that's that. Believe me, the human body can work so much with how we relate to the opposite sex. Even our instincts. Women have different instinctual behaviors than men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is how we connect. I call it synergy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything on this planet has an opposite. And within these opposites are parts. Now, these opposites with their parts come together to form a function. Man and woman, regardless of sex, and I'm talking gays, come together with synergy. And that synergy is what compels them to come together. And this is how it all begins. People think it's attraction or it's lust. That attraction and lust is the outcome of this of coming together.
Mm-hmm.
That is a function that's happening. And we have 4 primary sexualities. We have heterosexual, we have reverse heterosexual, we have homosexual, we have reverse homosexual.
So what's the reverse bit?
The reverse bit is the female produces above average amounts of testosterone and is known as a femme masculi.
Mm-hmm.
The male produces above average amounts of estrogen and is a masculi femme. There are some men that can talk to women, sit and talk to women all day. That's a masculi femme. He has more estrogen than he has, so it's a little off balance. The female, these are women that can be aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
They can go out and have a sexual partner, it doesn't bother them. They're inclined to be more into the testosterone part of it.
Kind of the alpha female, so to speak.
Yes. Then you got the homosexual, which is the brain at birth became the estrogen in male, testosterone in female. So you have complete, which is gay or lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your reverse homosexual is like a transgender.
Okay.
With male brain, female testosterone, however it was connected at birth.
Yeah.
Now, listen to this. These 4 primary sexualities have various opposites. The heterosexual has one opposite. The reverse heterosexual has a half of an opposite. The homosexual has 2 opposites, and the reverse homosexual has 3 or 4 opposites.
Blimey.
Everything on this planet is in opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Everything with functioning parts that come together to create a whole.
Mm-hmm.
This is very important because nature established this that way. So there are some that procreate and some that don't. Because back in the beginning, what archaeologists and scientists believe is sources for food were very difficult.
Scarce. Oh, you had to really go and find them, so to speak.
Yes. So, of course, they were in groups, but to be able to feed everyone. So this is a theory, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. And some archaeologists and scientists believe this could have been the reason why we have various primary sexualities. They've always existed. And, this is not a religious thing. This is to understand why we have 4 primary sexualities.
And I think, on a similar level, in what we're saying about animals, very recently here, there was a documentary on TV about a dog that was actually homosexual.
Yes.
But it's obviously the same principle, isn't it?
Yes. We have yet to touch the whole surface on this. But right now, everything's more theory.
Yeah. Fair
but
enough.
I use it in my webinar courses because it's part of understanding human connection.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the sexualities in order to understand human connection and who's connecting with who and why they connect.
And so how would you work with somebody who'd come to see you as a single person, maybe struggling to meet someone, or how do you put it into practice, so to speak?
I explain to them everything I explained to you. Now you understand human life. You understand human existence. It's very easy once you understand this to go out and meet people and connect because you feel like that person's genuine like you.
Mm-hmm.
In your instincts, women's natural being is that it's primarily about procreation.
Yeah.
Why are women more emotional than men? Women are. They're more practical. Why is this? They need this in order to bring up their young.
And to protect the young as well, I suppose.
Definitely. Why do women communicate more than men? Because they have to communicate with their offsprings. Why are women, when it comes to totally being emotional, because the emotive center in a female brain is active constantly. It never shuts down. This is because babies can't communicate. It's all through emotion.
Yeah. So they have to be able to read them.
Yes. And as they're growing, why are women changeable and men are fixed in nature? Women are changeable because as their children are growing, they can change with them. They understand these changes because they're changeable. Yeah. How am I doing?
It makes complete sense.
Yes.
So this is obviously the science of it, and but you've got people who obviously are not aware of that at all. So what would you say at the moment is the number one problem for single people?
Single people, the number one problem is the innocence is gone. There's no innocence when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to sex, when it comes to understanding the opposite sex. There's no more innocence. Also in this country, I don't know about your country, but in this country, equality is a problem because especially women, they think that it goes with relationships too. And it doesn't. There's no equality when it comes to love and relationships. There's no equality. There's a male, there's a female, they're different. Their perception's different. And so it's like women want to be equal to men. So how can you create synergy with that?
Yeah, because as you said, everything's an opposite, so.
Yes, it's really, and it's been hammered into them since they start, very young in school. Yes, women can do anything. They're human too. They have a great brain. They can do some things men can't do. And why can't they go to work? Fine. But when it comes to love, you got two different individuals, male and female, coming together, and you have to respect those differences or it's not going to work. It's not.
And do you think that one of the issues as well is the sense of expectations that seems to be getting worse and worse as far as I'm concerned? People want and want and want more, but don't necessarily want to give, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, that's part of the equality. I love you, but I don't need you. That makes no sense. Need is a big part of a partnership. Women say they want to be independent. They want a partner, but they want to be independent, especially in this country anyway. And a relationship can't work when you're not in the relationship, you're outside of it. Women tend to want to be outside of the relationship. And that's not a relationship.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is, you can be independent because you can, but it's also okay to show the softer side and the fact that sometimes it's nice to feel protected and it's nice to have someone looking after you.
Just because you're in love and someone loves you, you can't think that if they get close where you're vulnerable, you're not independent anymore. There are times, even though you're independent, you're going to be vulnerable. And that's with everyday life. You have to let go and give your vulnerability as much as you give your strength. Mm-hmm. That is a wonderful, well-connected relationship.
So what else would you say makes for a great relationship?
What makes for a great relationship is understanding that the male has different instincts than the female. And if you understand those, you can communicate beautifully.
So tell us a bit more about that, because some people might think, oh yeah, I've got a couple of ideas, but what is it exactly?
I can give you an example with my husband and I. When we get into an argument, I'm emotional, he's logical. But I taught him that women, when they're upset, they communicate openly. They're constantly talking, constantly their emotions. Women communicate with their emotions. And so men don't. They just see logic and they want to express that logic. Why doesn't she understand? Why is she rambling on? Because of her emotions. That's how she communicates. The best thing a man can do is just let her talk. Get it all out. Because he's not going to talk much. He's just going to say, look, this is this way. And men are also problem solvers.
Yes, yeah, so
women can solve problems, definitely. But the first thing that comes up in a man's mind is, how do I fix this problem?
Yeah.
And he's not listening to her communicate. He's thinking, oh, how can we solve this problem?
Yeah, where she doesn't want the problem to be solved. She just wants to talk.
Yes, because she just wants to get it out.
Yeah.
Then she feels better. I feel better once I get it all out.
So that's, obviously the word escapes me. The way we're wired, for one of the better terms. But what about cultural differences in a relationship?
Oh, cultural differences. It depends on
the culture, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes. Because I have to tell you, all right, so my trip to Panama, here's a good example. Women, Panamanian women love being women, and they love dressing up. They love looking like females. The men, they're old-fashioned, yes. They treat a woman like she's not, now I'm not going to say property. I'm going to say like they feel. I think a lot of cultures feel the synergy more than we do, our culture. That pedestal thing is there. Yes, the man's a man, the woman's a woman. But now here's the thing. They're at peace with their instincts. They're at peace with their biology. Now, what I mean by peace is they understand. Their innate feelings help them to understand. Their biology shows outside the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they interact with the opposite sex. I mean, seriously, the problem I think in our country is we dismiss our instincts. We dismiss what's going on biologically, especially in our brain. But in a lot of cultures where they understand male and female and how they connect with each other, it's very natural. I mean, if you're standing next to a couple communicating, you can actually, if you think about it, you can feel that synergy between them. They understand who they are as male and female.
And I suppose that gives them a certain security or sense of safety, which certainly, you know, I see a lot women do feel more insecure than men.
Women are emotional beings. They have to feel emotionally secure in their relationship. I tell men this all the time. You have to make her feel emotionally secure. It's not just about what you do for her. Oh, okay, here's another example. A man needs to feel needed by the woman he loves. He needs to feel needed. Today's women don't understand that. If I tell him I need him all the time, then he's going to take me for granted. But that's not so. The more you give me your partner, your male partner, a reason for being needed, the more he feels like you love him. That's another thing that I have to get across to women.
And I think this is the thing. It's like, you know, with anybody, actually, we always judge people and how they react according to how we feel, think, and react. We're actually male or female. You have to put yourself in their shoes and realise that we are all different, and that what you feel is the norm may not be for them. What you feel is, I mean, I've got a perfect example. I have one of my ex-partners is actually a very close friends now. And he is in a new relationship. It's been a year, but she's really struggling with it, in the sense that to her, the way he acts is not how a man should act. Now, when he tells me what she believes a man should do, I mean, I'm with him on that one. You know, she's got some concepts that are a bit weird, but she won't accept that to him it's something completely different. So as a result, they keep on arguing, because none of them is kind of, I'm not even going to say compromise, but just trying to see the other side.
It's called male perception and female versus female perception. They have to understand each other's perception, because basically this is what's happening. Men see things different and women see things different. They have to understand those perceptions are different. Once they learn why and understand the instincts, let's see, it's called instinctual behaviors in the ancient brain. These are behaviors. If they understand through the male perception, the female perception, each one's behavior is unique. Once they understand that, communication is perfect. It's fluid. But until
what about a homosexual relationship then?
Same thing. As long as it depends on which is the estrogen or the testosterone,
right?
Which is stronger. It depends on if it's a female brain in a male body, or a male body and a male brain in a female body. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. It's the male or the female. You got opposites. You got like in transgenders, you could have 3 or 4 opposites, and it makes sense for them to call themselves they or them, because that's exactly what they have. Mm-hmm. And it's not being crowded in there. It's very natural that nature decided some cannot procreate.
Yeah.
That's the only theory we can think of why this is happening. They have found some genes connected to the gay male.
Okay.
They have found genes. So theoretically speaking, if they could balance DNA, if they could, when they work with DNA, it could finally, they could find all the genes of different homosexuals and reverse homosexuals. If they do that, then the world will have to accept the fact that they belong. They were meant to be.
And going back to the cultural differences, how do you deal with it, so to speak, when, you know, you've got a male and a female, but that are coming, they're not, you know, like in Panama even, when we were talking just now, and you were saying, you know, they're very in the normal ancient brain ways, where
Yes.
maybe in the States or in Europe, it's not so much the case. So what happens when you've got, you know, maybe similar cultural or similar cultures, like for instance, you know, I'm French, but it's a completely different culture to England, where I live. So how do you then deal with that, with what you've just said around the brain?
Well, I have to tell you, it's still the same.
Okay.
It's still the same. I mean, all right, let's go back in Victorian times. Okay, now there's a culture for you.
Yeah.
They covered their legs of their furniture. They were very how do you say, in a very celibate way. Of course they had sex because the generation went on, but they were very what's the word I want to use? You would never know they were courting.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
No one touched each other.
Yeah.
They were well-mannered, and they courted, you know, it would be months before he was even allowed to come to her house. I mean, seriously, when you talk about cultures, no matter what time in history, no matter what the culture is at that time, your ancient brain, where your instincts are, and your biology has not changed. It's still going to be the same. These things do not evolve unless when they start fooling around with the DNA, they can change the neurons in the brain or get rid of the ancient brain. It's going to stay the same. It's survival and procreation.
And
Now,
so,
yeah.
oh,
Now
carry on, sorry.
today, women want to get married later in life and have children. What bothers me is if this pattern keeps going on, by 2050, we're going to have less population. I wish we could go back to the part where the courting, when we court, we keep the sex side of it for a while. We get to know that person. We take the time to get to know that person, and then we continue from there to see if we're compatible. That would be good. That would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people also kind of get together for the wrong reasons, shall we say. They're more in love with the idea of being in love and with that particular person.
Well, there you go, because your instincts are, your brain, I mean, women have the worst part of the deal because if they get emotionally involved, which is usually by the physical way, or just allowing the guy to hug them and kiss them and, you know, like that, their oxytocin level goes up. They're bonding. And then the guy or they both discover it's not working, and she's still thinking about him even though they're not together anymore. Women have the bad side of this deal, but I try to tell women, don't get physical. Get to know the guy first. Don't get physical. And date other people. Date other guys or whoever. Just try to get to know them before you have that physical thing happening, because seriously, women just look at a guy that they're attracted to and they can bond.
What about men then? How do they bond?
Oh, testosterone blocks their oxytocin until they're emotionally connected. Once they're connected emotionally, their testosterone decreases a bit and their oxytocin comes up. Now, let me tell you something. Have you ever seen a guy in love?
Yeah.
He's like a dorsal puppy. I mean, he's so weak-kneed. That's because his testosterone level went down. So that's how that happens. And a woman can see that. She can sense that.
It's interesting because, you see, for me, before doing all of these things, and my understanding was really that men need the physical to get to the emotional, where actually the woman needs the emotional to be able to be physical.
No, men don't need the physical to get to the emotional. Nature designed man to spread his seed. That's why his testosterone blocks his oxytocin. Yes, that's why men are more physical, because nature wants them to spread their seed. And so procreation can happen. This is something women have to understand. When a guy looks at her, it's lust at first sight.
Yeah. So what gets him to that emotion then?
It's the spreading of the seed that's in his mind.
Oh, God, yeah.
One day, if she holds on to his interest, one day, all of a sudden he's going to feel something for her. And it's all going to change. His oxytocin will come up, his testosterone will go down, and she's going to be a lucky girl.
I think this is it. It takes longer for a man. I've always said that. That's what nature wants that. Nature does know. Oh, a guy can look at a girl and say, "Oh, I'm so in love," but what he's thinking is, "I'm so in lust." And I think, to be fair, the physical is an important part of bonding too.
Oh, definitely. That's how you have your offsprings. Definitely. But it's always has been, and it always will be, up to the female. How the mating dance will be made. How the dance is going to go. It's up to the female. Yeah.
And what would you say to people that attract a wrong type? Men or female, heterosexual, homosexual, but they just attract a wrong type. Why, in the sense of science, why is...
Okay, you've heard of the saying, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. Mm-hmm. This is what people do. They got hung up what they don't want. The brain assesses that, and they end up being attracted to what they don't want.
So it's all that mindset.
It's all that mindset. I tell couples all the time, start worrying about what you don't want and think about what you do want. And keep that going so your brain can assess that.
Well, Linda, it's absolutely fascinating, but we are actually getting towards the end of our time together. So my last question would really be, it's all about knowledge, really.
It's the knowledge. They need the knowledge because they don't have the perception or they don't understand the instinct. They're too out of the game because of education, career, all the cultural differences today when it comes to connecting between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, a woman and a woman, and double or triple that they're not understanding what's important. They're not understanding what the human connection really is.
Well, Linda, thank you so much once again.
And thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. So that's all we've got time for today. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.